Do not tell a man you even resemble Megan Fox. Number one takeaway from season 6 of Love is Blind. Welcome to the currently nameless podcast. I'm Samantha. There is no Jess. Things have changed a little bit. She's moved on to other ventures and doesn't have time to focus on watching all the seasons of Love is Blind in one day, but luckily I do. And that's exactly why I thought I would get started again back in podcasting. I don't have all the equipment or anything just yet, or a name, but I do want to talk about Love is Blind. So let's just get right into it. Also, unfortunately, because Jess left, our producer Sadie has also left, so the producer Emily will now be stepping in. She is just baby. So the first 6 episodes of Love is Blind launched season 6, and I feel like most people's response was, there's a new season, but I was like, there's a new season! I'm so excited. I just watched the first season over with my friends over the weekend with a friend who had never seen it before, and the first season, incredible. When I look back on it, all of Giannina's scenes, I was like, oh, she was fully acting. This was an acting gig for her, 100%. Watching Lauren and Cameron over, iconic. Barnett and Amber, like, they're nuts, but very, very well suited. Like, it all makes so much sense. And when you watch the seasons over again, you really see how obvious it is who gets paired up, because, like, right from the get-go. And that was kind of my first sort of notice or issue with this season, was it felt like it moved really fast. And maybe it's because we know what to expect now, but especially the couple, Amy and Johnny. I was like, no thoughts. Like, I have all of these notes, okay? All of these notes. And my first comment on them was no thoughts. That was the only note I took. And then surprised that they were the first to get engaged, because I was like, I feel no connection to them. You haven't given me any time, anything to grab onto, I felt like. So I was really, really surprised, like, how quickly that relationship went through, but I'm assuming they're giving us all this other information because the drama and the tea is going to go down episode 7 onwards. I can already tell what's going to go on with all the potential other people that they could have dated being brought back in, but I'll get Amy and Johnny out of the way real quick because I don't really have a lot of thoughts on them. If you can't remember who they are, Johnny has kind of the longer hair, Amy is from Puerto Rico, and they seem really fun together. They seem really goofy, like they're having a good time. He definitely was into her physically, like he couldn't, I wrote down, like, he cannot stop smooching her is exactly what I wrote down. But the thing is that she's saying, like, she wouldn't approach him in the real world, blah, blah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, that's not exactly what you want to hear from someone, but that is kind of the premise of this entire thing, is that you're going for somebody who you're not necessarily physically going to swipe on, go up to at a bar, or whatever. But yeah, even seeing them post-engagement in the Dominican Republic, I feel like they seemed silly and goofy together. They seemed like they were having fun. She seems a little bit more, like, fiery than him. I'm kind of curious how he'll respond. But they seem good. So far, so good. Other highlights for me of the season, 2 people left before they even, like, left the pods because they were so upset. I'm very curious to know if we're going to get an update on Matthew and who was the girl that left? Amber? Who also left, because obviously the way production went, like, we didn't get to see any of Amber and Matthew together until they dropped that bomb, which I'm gonna get to, which was really, really exciting to see. But then when they ended up both leaving, I'm like, okay, I hope we get an update. I'm kind of surprised that we didn't get an update already as to if they have met up. The other highlights for me were one girl getting 2 I love yous in a day. I think it was in a day of, if not the span of 24 hours. Love to see it. When someone said, grab your EpiPen because you're gonna choke, I thought that was so funny. I also loved Nolan. I believe this is the only thing we ever heard from him, pretty much, but I loved when he called his chest hair taco meat up top. Incredible work. And the name slip. The name slip. You're about to get engaged to a girl and call her another name? Okay. Actually, speaking of, let's talk about Jessica right away. As soon as I saw Jessica, the first shot of her when she's, like, so typically beautiful, has that sweet accent, the voice that men are gonna love, and a child, I was like, oh, she's gonna be, like, a main character on this season. And I really, really was like, oh, she's gonna end up engaged by the end of this. So first thoughts I was thinking about with Jessica was the telling someone you have a child up front or not. And I think this is really interesting. I've got some friends who have children who are dating, and I totally understand when it comes to online dating, not putting your child in your dating profile, because first of all, I know that on the flip side, I've heard from women, they don't love seeing men with babies in their profile picture, especially if they don't say who the baby belongs to, because it's just like, are you using this baby as a prop? Yes. And then of course women don't want to be targeted by men who know that they have children, whether it's because they think they can take advantage of the woman or God forbid the child, who the hell knows. Like, I totally understand holding that back. However, I do find it interesting. Maybe you don't want to go in on your first date, but in a situation like this, I feel like I would kind of go in not exactly with like all my issues loaded on my chest, because you also don't want to hand over someone all your vulnerable information, but it is kind of a like, I got this, this, and this, what do you think? You know, you're sort of going off of values and beliefs and how you see your life and all of those things. And obviously having a child is a big part of that. So for me, it's not necessarily even the child. It's that I would have a hard time, I think, getting down the road with somebody and then finding that information out. So it's sort of a sweet spot on figuring out when to tell somebody you have a kid. And also, of course, with Netflix, we don't know the timeline. The gold chalices have been enacted and we don't know the timeline of half the time they're saying stuff. So it seemed really far down the road, really far down the road of a week, that she told him. But it's obviously a very difficult situation, and I don't have a child. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you know, when you tell someone you have a child. And obviously in the pod situation, it's different than in real life. But for me, like, I definitely know as someone who thinks they probably don't want to have kids, if I was to be dating again, I'd want to know if someone has a kid, but they definitely don't need to tell me that on like the first date, maybe the second date if it's in person. So as soon as she started chatting with Jimmy, I was like, okay, these guys seem well suited. Like, there's somebody for everybody, and neither of these types of people are people that I feel like I could particularly relate with or that I would be like best friends with. Jimmy especially, I'm sure I could get along with Jessica, but Jimmy, the vibes are off. I don't know why the women love him so much. I think it might be his voice, because as the episode started to go on, and even after the fact when they're all at the beach in Dominican, there's comments, who says it about his who talks about Jimmy's voice, but basically she says like, you know, I was expecting him to be a little different based on his voice. And I think basically she was saying like his voice is hotter than he is because he's nothing to look at. Like, he's fine, but he's like, he has no personality to me. So I'm like, I don't understand why the girls are going so swoon city over this guy, because he's not saying anything. Like, he's saying a little bit of stuff, but I'm like, are you just used to people treating you like absolute trash? So then this guy's a little nice, sounds a little southern, seems like a great guy, because they're all bearing their souls to him. He's giving them nothing. I'm like, is this just your first time getting to bare your soul and then you feel very connected to this person because you've been vulnerable with them? Because I never really understood Jessica's connection to him other than nothing. Like, I didn't get it. Like, obviously being a mother and all of that is so important to her, and the reaction she got from Jimmy was really bad. Maybe it was shock, and he did come back and apologize, and then I really did like when he was asking questions about her daughter Autumn. It was really, really sweet, but he didn't seem to express anything, and he doesn't seem to express anything on his own unless prompted. So he didn't express like any, I think he was right for like being nervous about the fatherhood thing because he didn't really think about it. But on Jessica's portion, I'm like, he didn't voice at all like his interest in being a father or stepping up, or I didn't see that at least. So like, it didn't really seem like a fit to me from the beginning. And I think once she gave him that box with a letter she was going to write to her husband, you deserve better, Jessica. You're so hot. You're so hot. You're so hot. She's like typical hot, like brunette, brown-haired girl. Yeah, literally my last note. Jimmy doesn't give her much back. It was hard watching Jessica upset. She was so devastated. I did not understand. Then, continuing with my boy Jimmy, started okay. I said this was my first note for him, but then lost me at the reaction to Chelsea when she had said she'd been married, which I was like, and what? Like, yeah, he's 27, she's 30, so like to me I'm like, that's kind of divorce time for people who got married younger. I'm, you know, approaching my mid-30s. It's divorce season for my friends back home. Like, well, none of my actual personal friends, but like a lot of people back home have already gotten divorces. And if I was to start dating again right now, especially if I was to date men, God forbid, but if I was to date men, I would probably be going for a man who'd been divorced, at least has had a long-term relationship, because like, to me, not that it's a red flag if you haven't had a long-term relationship necessarily, but especially with men, I need to know that like you've been in a relationship, you understand certain things, you know, like I'm not here to be the first girl that you like practice a bunch of things out on, you know, in our mid-30s. Like, I'm past that. So for him to have such a strong reaction, it's like, is it because you're taking it back? Is it because you think it's not pure anymore? Is it not special? Like, I just didn't really understand that, and some guy made a good point about this. This is, I have so many notes here, and some of them are just me yelling. Okay, I forget what guy said it, but he basically made a really good point, and it's essentially saying like what I'm saying, which is like, it's not the end of the world for someone to be coming on here and have been divorced. I really don't think it's a big deal, especially when she was married so young. And then I put, I don't really get, like, in continuing with my Jimmy, my Jimmy slam, to put it in his words, as to how Jessica, he described Jessica getting mad at him. He's like, I've never been slammed like that by a woman. And I was like, slam him! But also, I'm also like, definitely get your lick back. I love that she was like, you know, said what she had to say, but at the same time I was like, this is almost a visual representation of sending that huge text, and I'm trying to become one of those people who doesn't send the huge text, and it's just like, you know what? You fucked up, and now you're gonna have to live with it. But she gave him a really nice little speech and whatever when that was coming to an end. But I didn't like how Laura, because I really liked Laura before she was really introduced, and she was like giving lots of the women pep talks and stuff. So I'm kind of going between Jimmy and Chelsea and Jessica, because it was all kind of one love triangle here. But I didn't understand why Laura was being so cryptic about telling Jessica that Jimmy had essentially picked Chelsea. You know, she's like, just trust me, girl, just trust me. Like, why would she trust you? She doesn't know who you are. Give her the information so she can make the decision. Because maybe she would do something different. Who knows, right? So I thought that that was really bizarre. And when he said to her, like, you're gonna be an amazing wife for someone else, I don't need to hear that. It's not reassuring, okay? But Jessica really took it and ran. I love that, and it's a good, oh yeah, good reminder. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, okay? And I love that Jimmy described it as a slam. That was the best thing he said thus far. But yeah, back to Chelsea and Jimmy. I didn't see it between them. Like, when Chelsea came in, I was like, she's so fun. She's so bubbly. I loved her relationship with Trevor. Trevor was my favorite. He seemed really sweet. Did I write any notes about him? He barely got any time. Oh yeah, seems fun and goofy. The only thing I thought was funny was that he said things that make him smile were a Notebook and A Walk to Remember movies. I was like, okay, that's psycho material. But good chemistry with Chelsea, minus the dog name. Is that a deal breaker? Would you date someone who has the same name as your pet? Because I dated an Emily once. Yes, and it wasn't you. My friends would be like, human Emily or cat Emily? Oh yeah, sorry, Trevor. It was Trevor that made the point. Of course it was. Loved his point about, like, at this age, it makes sense that people can be divorced. Like, bless him. He seemed really mature, really funny, and I loved their energy together, and I feel like Jimmy just got her with the voice. Like, I don't know. Is it, like, the quiet thing that seems, like, more, like, sullen and masculine, but then when it comes down to it, he gives nothing. Like, his dream day. Yeah, his dream day when he was talking, I think, with Chelsea about his dream day. It was literally like, he said I a lot, not many we's. Talked about going to the beach and stuff like that, but like, there was really nothing to it. Sorry, my cat has respiratory issues if you can hear Emily breathing down there. But like, again, bless you, am I missing something? Like, please let me know in the comment section, am I missing something with Jimmy? Don't get it. Like, I was shocked when he said he was gonna propose to Chelsea. Like, and again, I feel like what I saw of them is just Chelsea laughing. I don't know. Again, I'm left perplexed on that. When Jimmy ends up proposing to Chelsea, again, gives nothing, blah, 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 blah. But when he says Jessica's name, and I'm like, this is the kind of thing, this is exactly why I would never go on one of these shows. Because even if their relationship was going good, and then you find that kind of thing out after the fact, and it's not just anybody's name. Of course it's Jessica. Of course it's Jessica. So bad. And then, so when they first met, the Jimmy and Chelsea meeting, immediately I knew. Immediately I knew the first thing going through this man's mind was, you're not Megan Fox. Which, I can't think of a more dangerous piece of information on this earth to say to a man. Because love is not blind. Hate to say it, and that's okay. It's good to be attracted to your partner. You should also be attracted to their mind, okay? I love a personality higher myself. And then sometimes you look back and you're like, why did I ever like them? But he was not into her everything he says to her is like a question, but then he also seems a little insecure, and then she's obviously feeling insecure with probably good reason. Like, this is not Taylor's oldest time when it comes to Love is Blind, is a girl feeling insecure, a guy being like, why do you feel insecure? And then acting in all these ways that make her feel insecure, and then her mood changes, and then he's like, well, and it's just Taylor's oldest time. So yeah, she went in for the kiss first. I noticed he was really holding the hug, but she went in for the kiss multiple times. I was like, can't tell if he's nervous and awkward or uninterested or both. I think it's all of it. I think he was a little shocked. When he said, I can work with that, I wrote next to that, jail? If someone said that about me, I can work with that? Jimmy, please. Have you seen yourself? Have you seen yourself? Jimith. And then again, this is sort of that Taylor's oldest time, Love is Blind, or maybe it's just how women cope, but like the passive aggressiveness, like I can sort of see it in Chelsea. I can see it a little bit in Laura, because I can see myself in them a little bit as well. And they're always talking about looks, always talking about looks, and that can be like the kiss of death sort of thing, is like they're just sort of focusing on that, being like, what about me, what about this, comparison to this, comparison to that, da 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 da. And a lot of things in relationships, sure, a question and an answer is great, but action and behavior is what's really going to help solidify that kind of thing. And Jimmy seems like the type of guy, and he more or less said it, that I say I love you, and that's kind of a coverall. I said I love you, so what else do you want, kind of thing, right? And she's like, I need reassurance, I need this, I need that, and he's not really getting it or giving it to her. And it's not that he can't, or sorry, it's not that he can't, no, sorry, it's not that he won't, he can't, because he doesn't feel that way, right? You saw the way his eyes lit up when he was talking to AD. He does not look at Chelsea like that. That says enough. I also just found another note about Chelsea where I'm like, Chelsea didn't know he was going to propose. Like, she went into both those proposals or whatever dressed pretty casually. I truly don't think she knew she was going to get proposed to. And when he said, meet me at the altar in your white dress, I wrote, am I gay or is that cringy? What? Jimmy for Chelsea? And why give the bracelet to Trevor if you're going to dump him? Like, that's just cruel. That's cruel. That woman is absolutely stacked. If you are in a solid relationship in which your partner is not expressing concerns about like how they look or anything like that, sure, why not? My girlfriend and I talk like that all the time. You know, I see a huge butt and I'm like, damn, there's a huge butt. And she's actually much more respectable than me. And she's like, I wasn't even looking. I'm like, well, look, respect that butt, you know? Not the time, Jimmy. And then when he proceeded to go over and talk to her, and the way his eyes are like lighting up when he's talking to her, and then when Chelsea's like, yeah, that made me feel uncomfortable, he's like, you weren't even anywhere near us. It's like, well, that's kind of part of the problem, you know? And he's like, I just thought we were so solid, da da da. He's very much like the type of guy that's like, I told you I loved you. What else do you want? Even though I hit you in the face, you know what I mean? It's like, but again, like, I don't think he's there with her, and I think she knows it. And it's just one of those horrible things. And of course, this is going to feed into all of Chelsea's insecurities. And, you know, it'll be hard to convince her otherwise that, you know, she's like saying, I've had trouble feeling loved and things like that. And I'm like, oh, this is just going to feed into that. And it's not like, for anybody who feels this way from the outside looking in, take this as an example of like, it ain't you, baby. It ain't you, it's them. And you only want someone who picks you 100% and makes you feel comfortable. Even if they're saying all the things that should make you feel comfortable and you still don't. It's okay. It's not a fit, and you don't need Jimmy's approval. I don't want Jimmy's approval. So more or less, I am not Team Jimmy, if you didn't gather that. Then really quickly, I want to talk about Kenneth and Brittany. Again, they're another couple that we didn't see a lot of, but they seem very, very well aligned. I'm saying all this knowing that I saw the preview of what happens in the next couple of episodes, we'll see. But they do seem really well aligned. Kenneth seems incredibly mature. He's been through a lot, and you can tell he has a very kind of calming and welcoming presence. I also can't believe he's a school principal at the age of 25. That's wild. But it's really, really nice to see them aligned, how much he seems to care for her. And it's exactly what you kind of want in one of those situations where you're out with other people and everybody can feel how solid you feel and look like, not that you want people looking at you being jealous, but it's just nice getting that reassurance from other people at how good it looks, and having your man pull up a chair when all the other girls are like, oh my god, like it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. So really happy to see that from them, and curious to see how that relationship plays out with the elements of religion and race. I thought it was good to see that conversation with Kenneth and AD, talking about her raising black children, all that kind of stuff, because these are real life things. You know, we want to say like, oh, race and all that kind of stuff doesn't matter, but clearly it does, because we're still fighting about it like 700,000 years into the earth. So I think it's a really important conversation to have, and I'm glad that they talk about that kind of stuff after the fact. Okay, so while I'm talking about AD, let's move on to her. I think she's fabulous. She has such a good, warm personality, and obviously made so many of these guys feel really, really comfortable, because a lot of them seem to really open up to her, which is a good thing. But then, as she said, she likes to do a little fix-a-hoe. So she really does attract those type of people, because they're like, no one's ever given me this space before. No one's ever done this for me before. No one's ever da-da-da-da-da. And then she's getting people who are then gonna like latch onto her because they either feel insecure or feel like they've never been able to do it before. But in my opinion, I'm like, where's AD's piece? Where's her space? Who's making her feel like that way? So first thing I wrote down was super fun personality. One of the first notes I made was Clay has a great voice, which I think we know. Their chemistry right off the bat, the way they spoke to each other, all of it, I was like, oh, this is love, this is lust. It's that exciting, butterflies, super flirty, really, really sweet. It seemed like a type of relationship dynamic that they're both comfortable with. AD even mentioned that herself. This is the type of guy she tends to go for, who's boisterous and a little more loud, probably some ego issues potentially, which we see a little bit down the road. When she was talking to Clayton about the body thing, I think that was really, really great, that she was like, you know, that's not really the reason that we're here, and he came back and apologized. Like, again, we're not looking for anybody to be perfect, but it's like when someone points out something to you that made them feel uncomfortable or made them feel a type of way, all they want to hear is just an apology or an acknowledgement or some reassurance, whatever it is. They're not getting defensive, not throwing things back in your face. Like, those are the types of things that I look for, because conflict is going to happen in any relationship, and you want it to be a relationship where you know, and this was something that I made note for a lot of these guys. I mean, it's my own issues too. But then I'm like, I'm worried about how these guys will deal with conflict, a lot of them. And I was right. But I thought, like, obviously Clay talking about looks and stuff, like, sure, that's fine, but this is not the place. And then quickly going back to dun dun dun, Matthew. Okay. No offense to anybody who likes to, you know, do miniature things in their basement by headlamp, but he's that type of guy, you know what I mean? And then would like mess up his tiny toy train set and then freak out, and then like the whole house is upset because he had a bad day. Like, he gives me that vibe. On top of that, like, it would be enough to hear that he walked out on other women while they were speaking for me to not be interested in him. Because if you're the type of man, and there's a lot of them out there, who's only interested in the type of woman that you're with, and like your mom and your sister, no thank you. You need to just have respect for humans in general. So just that you're like, he picked me, it's like, okay, yeah, but then the moment he's not into you, he's going to treat you like everybody else. You know? You become everybody else to him. So immediate notes on Matthew. Needs to loosen up. He feels that showing emotion is a weakness, but he is self-aware of that. So we appreciate that. That he opened up to AD, started therapy, love that. But again, therapy is only as good as what you give, right? Didn't like him disrespecting the other women. Don't trust him in conflict. And when he started getting into the like, yeah, I've got America on my side. No, you don't. Your perception, actually, you know what? Self-awareness award taken back, rescinded, because I'm like, I don't know if he went on this just completely as a joke and he was like, I can't talk because if I talk, people will find out that I'm actually Looney Tunes, or if he is Looney Tunes or something in between. But all the talk about the lights, camera, action, America on my side, America loves an underdog, is like giving me Andrew from 2 seasons ago with his tears and whatever. So that was really, really bizarre. And I fully believe that he said, like, and we know that he said basically the same thing to these women, like 80s face. Like, you don't go that far down the road. And the way that he spoke with AD about it, like, he did not acknowledge or particularly deny or anything with her in that conversation. Like, she even laughed, being like, yeah, he talks me in circles, right? And we've all been in that situation where someone sort of talks you in circles and you don't even know what you went in for anymore. So he's manipulative in that sense. And such a, and boy do I know one of these myself, a self-proclaimed victim. Like, just please with the underdog and don't want to hear it, Matthew. Glad you're gone, but curious to hear what turned out of you. So really glad, because I was really feeling like, it felt like to me that AD was just picking between these two guys, and I'm like, you don't need either of them. Matthew is nuts. And Clay seems fun, but it feels like he's just a better pick than Matthew at this point, not the pick, you know? I feel like maybe in a couple years from Clay, but she doesn't need to be, like, there's so much talk from Clay and AD about, like, she calls me out and this and that, and to me I'm like, I don't know. I personally want an equal partnership. Like, of course, everybody's going to bring something different to the relationship, and we should be able to help each other grow. But in those ways, it's tough and it can be taxing. So we'll see where it goes. They obviously have insane chemistry, just insane body, yada, yada, yada. The conversation that they were having about her body and about get you in the gym and basically saying she has to snap back after childbirth and stuff. Like, America's not going to be on your side on that one. Matthew or Clay. I hate to break it to you. But she did have a good conversation with him, and then he was kind of like, okay. I also am nervous that he doesn't know how a wedding works. I don't really understand how you don't know that just from life, but that's none of my business. But I did love that he did apologize to her in the pods about the body thing, and, you know, noticing and commenting that it is his defense mechanism. And I love that he opened up and all of this kind of stuff. And I also love that he, after talking about her ass and everything, like, extensively, he was like, but I also don't want to sexualize you and da-da-da. But I'm like, that's exactly what I want. Like, I want someone who's going to be loving my butt, but also loves me as a human being. Like, you can do both, right? Both can exist. But when they met, when the doors opened up for Clay and AD, like, you felt that chemistry. It looked so good. I just hope it doesn't burn out. And like I said, that out of shape conversation was just very interesting. And, like, you know, when he's saying, like, but a good trainer, but it's like, yeah, she made a good point. Like, you're not her trainer, you're her husband. So, like, let's figure out the roles. But you don't even understand the marriage, quote unquote, rules or how weddings work. So maybe when he gets that lesson, he'll understand his role. He's not a trainer. Now we go to Jeremy and Laura. And first of all, Jeremy with an A. Jail Jeremy. Okay, Jeremy. First of all, right off the bat, I loved Laura. Like, first of all, I think she's so pretty, but I love, like, all of her interactions with the girls she was around. There was also another girl that AD was quite good friends with who didn't really continue on, but she was really good too. Those were the two girls that I was like, I really like those guys. They seem, like, really good to be around. I wrote, Jeremy is whatevs. The logical thing is interesting. And whenever men call themselves logical, I get a ding ding ding. Maybe it's just like trigger wording for me because I dated a logical guy once. I'm curious about his level of emotion, the way he, like, pokes at her and stuff. I find that really childish and annoying, and I don't get it. But whatever floats your boat, that could just be, like, a me thing. But the way he kind of pokes at her, I find bizarre. It was kind of the same when Jimmy was doing the knuckle cracking and Jessica was like, what are you doing? He was like, oh yeah, I'm doing that to annoy you. And I'm like, is this like a little boy thing where it's like, oh, he likes you, so he's torturing you? And I'm like, this is the worst thing that we were ever taught in school, ever, is that boys who like you treat you bad, because look what happened to us. Who taught us that? Who's running the curriculum? But yeah, I didn't really get, again, the connection between Jeremy and Laura. Like, they look really good together. They obviously, and they're attracted to each other. Like, he's definitely attracted to her. She seems into him as well. But she seems like a very strong willed woman, and honestly kind of reminds me of myself. And it can be, when you're direct and stuff, it can be taken improperly sometimes, because everybody just, like, is so wishy-washy with their words. And if you're at all direct, people are like, oh my god, you're being so mean. So it's kind of interesting. I'm curious to see how it's going to go out. Green is her color, for sure. But yeah, they look good together, and I think that the bean dip. The bean dip. Who would have known that this was going to be such a problem? First of all, I need to look this up, because I would expect a bean dip to be, like, downstairs. Love is Blind, one of the first searches. This website, Love is Blind Season 6, makes a great case for therapy. Everyone's talking about the bean dip. I haven't watched anybody else's content about this, by the way. I don't see anything about that being called bean dip, but I thought that the whole situation was weird. So it kind of showed everybody on somewhat bad behavior. Like, I think it's a fine joke to make to your partner, like, oh, go bean dip, AD or whatever. But you don't know everybody. So I think it was like, it sucked that Jeremy said it, Clay had a bad reaction, then AD had a bad reaction, I think based on Clay's reaction if I had to really guess, and then Laura felt a little embarrassed and defensive because Jeremy put her in that position, and then was just sort of like, oh well, Laura said it to me and Laura's so inappropriate and da da da, as opposed to kind of like having her back and de-escalating the situation. So I guess like ultimately we can say like Laura shouldn't have made that joke. Ultimately it's not appropriate to joke about a man slapping another man, a man slapping another woman's bean dip, but at the same time it isn't, like, I hate to be like, it's not that deep, but I do kind of feel that way. But again, you don't know everybody. Like, if I was going to a party with my partner and I made a joke, like, for example, there's people that, you know, my partner and I know who are very, that are, like, in our lives that are more conservative, right? And there's certain jokes that we wouldn't make at their house, that we would make at my house, you know, or on this podcast. So it's kind of different, and that's one of those things that I'm so grateful now to have a partner that I can walk into a situation and know that I'm not scared of what she's gonna say and vice versa. There was a little embarrassment there, there's a little defensiveness, and it's just kind of, it was definitely an awkward situation, and it sort of showed the lack of connection or the immaturity in the relationship. Not even like that they're being immature, but like that Laura and Jeremy's relationship is, you know, in an immature state. It's still very new and they don't fully trust each other. And perhaps just a difference in social interaction. So not necessarily a kiss of death, but he did say at the end of this, or I did see in the preview, that he wanted to see Sarah again. Sarah Ann, which I thought was interesting because again, we didn't see a lot of Sarah and Jeremy's relationship. But I did write down for Sarah, conservative, interesting, because to me it kind of felt like he maybe wasn't as into her because she was conservative, and I thought that was kind of why it kind of came to an end. But I thought it was interesting that she said politics don't belong in conversations, and I'm like, that's exactly what conservatives say. And where do politics belong? You know what I mean? Because people are like, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about politics. Only politicians can talk about politics. But I'm like, guys, politics is about the people. It's like healthcare and human rights and, you know, getting the streets paved, getting the snow plowed, like whatever it is. So whenever someone says that to me, like it's getting too political, like that's a red flag to me, personally. But I did appreciate Sarah's response to the breakup. You know, it was very much like, I hear ya, I only want someone who wants me, blah, blah, blah. And of course this could be her own coping thing too. Like, she probably went home and cried. But it was like, you know, it was an amicable looking breakup, which I really, really appreciated. But the last person I'd want to see when I come in from getting dumped by some guy is the girl he picked. Like, God bless Laura, and I'm sure they set it up there so that Laura would be there to receive her. Cruel, cruel on the producer's part, but I don't want a hug from you, okay? I don't want to talk to you. But it's good sportsmanship. So I'd love to know what you think. What couples are you rooting for? What individuals are you rooting for? What do you think is going to happen in episode 7 onwards? I love that they're bringing in all the other people. Like, this show is silly Billy, okay? But it really does give you everything. It gives you the reality show. It gives you On Vacation. It gives you them talking to each other. It gives you the families. It gives you this. It gives you that. Barely any Nick and Lachey. Nick and Lachey. Nick and... oh my god, what's her name? You know who I'm talking about. Nick and Vanessa. Barely any Nick and Vanessa for the time being. And yeah, overall, really, really, really pleased with this season. So those are all of my thoughts. Takeaways are, don't let a man touch your bean dip, and never tell a man you look like Megan Fox. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a comment down below. And if you're listening, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!